Today we're breaking down verse 3 and verse 26 of the Tao Te Ching. Verse 3 starts with, putting a value on status will create contentiousness. If you overvalue possessions, people begin to steal. By not displaying what is desirable, you will cause the people's heart to remain undisturbed. The sage governs by emptying minds and hearts, by weakening ambitions and strengthening bones. Practice not doing. When action is pure and selfless, everything settles into its perfect place. Happiness is the way. There is not a way to happiness. We've had goals in the past that we've accomplished. And if you look at your state of happiness currently, those goals did not provide an overwhelming, long lasting state of joy, right? It's kind of like folks who had to carry the rock up the hill. Like when you get to that point of the hill where the rock is at the top, you get that point for 1 second and then it's back down the hill and you're doing the whole thing over again, right? So we want it to be that the whole time we're doing our work, the whole time that we are living, the whole time that we are experience this 3 dimension, that we are content and have this perennial state of joy. Because once we identify something as happiness or unhappiness or beautiful or ugly, like we have to have the opposite for it to be true. So when we can embody the oneness of it all, that's where the contentment comes in and the joy comes in. Instead of expecting certain moments to bring us joy, we are just joyful. So our life is controlled by something way bigger than the details of our aspirations. You feel me? And if we are too attached to name, form, achievement, everything is going to be ephemeral and everything is only through our very limited thinking. We start to have this programming that we need certain conditions in order for us to feel a certain way, or certain conditions in order for us to be taken care of. And then those desires are what's breeding the anxiousness, what's breeding the nervousness, what's bringing the frustration type shit. So when we empty the mind and the heart, we're pretty much removing the ego from our actions, and we are able to work out of calling as opposed to out of ambition. Because a calling for something, when you're like serving, when you have a calling, when you're doing something that is divinely downloaded from whatever the fuck, now you finna hit that shit for real, for real. And ambition is kind of motivation filled, it's kind of ego driven, and it might not be the most harmonious activity or behavior to take on. So at every moment, you have the opportunity to either be a host to God or a hostage to your ego. The heavy is the root of the light. The still is the master of unrest. Realizing this, the successful person is poised and centered in the midst of all activities. Although surrounded by opulence, he is not swayed. Why should the lord of the country flit about like a fool? If you let yourself be blown to and fro, you lose touch with your root. To be restless is to lose one's self-mastery. This reminds me of the story of the 2 birds where there's one bird sitting on a branch, observing everything. There's another bird going down and eating sour fruit and then eating sweet fruit and then eating sour fruit and then eating sweet fruit. And the observer is cooling it. That's the perennial joy. Other bird is in the conditional, the sweet, the sour, the ups and downs of life, and identifying those as ups and downs as opposed to being in awe and gratitude of life itself type shit. The still is the master of unrest. So at every moment, you have the opportunity to either be a host to God or a hostage to your ego. At every moment in life, you have the opportunity to be a host to God and carry on that tranquility, calmness, or a hostage to your ego where it's like, it's pandemonium, it's conditional, it's very programmed based. This is how I've lived my life for the past 20 something years. And when I come to this type of emotion or this type of event or this type of activity or receive these type of emotions, then I have to feel this type of way and behave this type of way and now act this type of way. That's ego. And now you're going to be seeking more pleasurable moments and trying to go away from the unpleasurable. But that's also one of the same coin. So you're going to identify this as pleasurable or unpleasurable as opposed to seeing the oneness and all. And when you're not separating and not seeing the oneness, that's when you're suffering the most. So the main thing is being rooted, being grounded, emptying your mind, emptying your heart so that you can have a reaction of calmness to everything in life. So you're not identifying this as that and that, even though it's all one, it's all the same. So we don't have to say this is a beautiful sunrise or that's such a beautiful person. So we can just enjoy the moment without separating. And using external factors to determine the inner state of your mind, that's you blowing to and fro. You feel me? That's you not being grounded or rooted, and then you have no agency. You're using your very limited thoughts to justify a state of being that you don't want to be in, right? Traffic or blah blah blah. Now you're frustrated and you're like, well, because there's traffic, I can be frustrated in this moment, and I should be frustrated in this moment. And every time I saw traffic before, I was frustrated. So now frustration. But we have to just see the calmness and the oneness in it all. You can say, my boss tweaked and la 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 la, anger. So, but because he did something that was unacceptable, I have the right to be angry now. Not only do I have that right, I am angry. I'm going to show behavior of anger. That's being hostage to your ego. That's not being the host to God type shit.